Hello coders, good afternoon. Today we're going to be working through the third part of the PHP registration course. This is just me basically throwing code and seeing what sticks, basically trying to create like a proof of concept or a proof of concept, I guess, before actually getting into the meat and potatoes of documenting it and all this stuff. So lots of change, lots of code churn. Last week we did the second part, and that was like throwing code at the IDE and seeing how we could work out the registration process. We're using PDO, we're using MySQL, we're using PHP, and I was just coming up with some architecture. I was just out of my head. I was just throwing architecture on the page, and I got it to a point where I was kind of happy with it. And then what I did after the stream is I started just tidying it up a little bit more. I actually made a connection to the database. So what I'll do is I'll walk you through it. I need to refresh my mind because I haven't done it in a week. This whole thing in a week, so I need to refresh my memory. So I'll go through that first, and then we'll just continue on. And I think it's going to be like the same as last week, where I'm just, throwing code at the page, really, just seeing what sticks. Let's just see if we can get that a little bit more in focus. Sort of. Right, let's get into the code. So, as you can see, this is where we've got to unknown database PHP Reg course. And if I was to tab over to the actual code, which is in here. Hey, thank you for subscribing. I have no idea if you're watching this now or whether you've watched one of my videos and hit subscribe there, but thank you ever so much. I appreciate that. That's so nice to see that coming through in real time. It's really dark in here for some reason. I don't know why. Right. Probably because I've closed the blind, but if I did that, I'll get reflection on the screen. Anyway, what we did last week, let's wire it up together. So last week we worked through the introduction, which is the course intro. So we started creating the docs, and I believe we didn't go as far as lesson 1. And I started to think about how we're gonna wire up the bits and pieces. So I started throwing the code together. So we have a public directory and an SRC. This is all going to be obviously in the project. So when you download the project, this is what you're going to get eventually. That's why I'm a little bit hesitant at the moment of documenting it, because this is up for discussion and change. So right, we got the SRC directory, we've got the public directory. Public is going to be where I guess you would call it the controllers would live. This is not going to have a framework. This is just going to be pure PHP goodness. And I was creating like some, like I said, out of my head, I was just creating like the happy path. So this is the profile page. So to give you a recap of what the actual application does, you have a registration form, there is a login form, and then there is a secure profile form. So to update your profile, I think I chose like first name and last name, or just name. But you can only do that once you've logged in. So this teaches like session management and form and cleansing of user input and all of that good stuff. So anyway, right, what I decided on was we actually did this on index as an actual real thing. So so don't worry if it's index at the minute. But yeah, so we got a DB variable and we're instantiating a new DB class. Then we've got a user manager. That's right, I decided to create managers to manage the data. So we've got user manager here, new user manager, passing in or injecting the database. And then down here we have a user ID. So this is me fetching a user by ID. So we've just hard coded that as 1. That will obviously be somewhere in the session or something. I haven't quite decided that yet. And then we're then returning a user by the user manager find by ID, passing in that. So, and then just dumping that out. So let's have a look. The DB, let's open that up. The DB is this class. Let's just get rid of that for a second. So it's this class where we've got a constructor, we've got a DSN, a username and password, and if they're not set, they are being set by default, which means that we can override this. I wanted to try and make this as flexible as possible in the sense that I wanted to, well, not as possible, but I wanted to sort of offer a some future proofing. So having the ability to alter this if you wanted to. And then here we have our try catch block where we're running a parent construct, passing in a DSN, the username and the password, making sure that we are setting to UTF-8. And then we are also setting an attribute, which is the PDO attribute error mode, and we're setting that to error mode exception. So that's our database connection, I suppose. And then I was playing around with potentially putting in the queries within here. But if we go over to the SRC folder here, we've got our, so databases, that's where we're living. That's where we are at the minute. Then we've got our managers, and we've got a abstract manager and a user manager. This is all the things I was throwing together yesterday. So if we were to follow it from the index, what we're doing is we've instantiated that new DB and we're passing that in to, so at this point we've made the connection and we're passing that into the user manager. So the user manager is here, and what we've done is, yes, we've got user manager extends the abstract manager, which means that we can have more than one manager of various different types. So, you know, this again gives it a bit of flexibility and future proofing. So here we've got a find by ID and a hydrate call. We also have a find by email and hash. Haven't populated this one yet. And yeah, this is where I was just throwing code. So what we're doing is we're querying, we're doing a query by ID here, passing in the ID, and the table name is user table name. So this is coming off of the model. So we define a model for our PHP objects that represent the data in the database. So we've got the table name in the model. Again, I'm not 100% sure whether that's going to be in there. We might have a constants file, maybe. I don't know. Depends on how many of these things we have. Then we've got the class properties, first name, last name, email, and password, and ID, which is the integer, which is nullable because you don't have an ID until it's been populated, which means, so I want to create a user as a user object and then pass that object in to actually save that user object and then hydrate the ID back once the record has been created. So there is a point in time in which the user has been created in the PHP land, but not in the database land. And then when the database land record gets added, you then hydrate the PHP land's user ID. Anyway, so then we've got the getters and setters. They're pretty self-explanatory, to be fair. They're just getters and setters, nothing too massive there. And then going back to the user manager, what we have is the query by ID. So we pass in the table of user, pass in the ID, and then we hydrate based on the result. So if I go back over to the query by ID, which is here, so this is within our abstract manager, and I was considering doing this in the actual DB class, but again, it all up for debate. So we have, and I was just literally throwing this on page last week. So this is refreshing my memory. So we've got a SQL call here. So select all from table name where ID is ID, and we're binding these parameters. So we can see that we've got a statement here, and we're preparing that with the SQL, and then we are passing in executes by, well, we're calling execute and passing in the bounded parameter of ID, which we've got here by colon ID, like that. And then we're doing a return fetch. So this is going to return us the record. And then, so I have one insert record, I've got update record, which all need to be, these are just stubbed out, obviously. And then going back to the manager, so we've got the record, so the result, and then we call hydrate. So that returns an array of data, right? So calling hydrate here, we're instantiating a new user model, and then we're just doing a bunch of sets. So setting the first name, last name, email, and ID. Obviously, we're not setting the password. And then we're returning that back because you shouldn't be storing passwords in variables. So that seems okay in my head. To set all this up, I've created a little SQL file here, install.sql. So we've got use PHP reg course, drop table if exists, user, create table, user. So again, ID, first name, last name, email address. That's the records here, or that's the fields, I should say. And then we are inserting a user. So we've got ID, first name, last name, email. Why are we inserting it? Is that fetching it? Yes, it's fetching it. Of course it is. So that's why we're inserting it. Because we've worked on the fetch first, not the insert. So insert into user ID, first name, last name, email address, values 1, Peter Fisher, and then my email address. All good things. Right. Okay. And what did I do in config? Config was the configuration. Yes. Okay. All right. Now, this will be the proof of the pudding, right? So if we go over to, because at the minute, this is just what's happening on index. I'm running it off of a local server, port 8080. So it's just crashing and burning because we don't have the PHP reg course. We don't even have the database yet. So this is going to be interesting. So this is on my local box here, local host, and we have the How to Code Well database, which is just a database for How to Code Well for this on this Mac Mini here. And what we need to do is create a database. So we need to create that, don't we? So we need to do create database, passing in the database name, which is that, like so. So if we create that, good. And I just want to double check the credentials. So if we go to settings, there we go. We got root and test being the password, and then that being that should be good. That's the database name in the DSN. The host is correct. And then if we go back to the DB class, what we're doing is we're saying connect using that DSN, passing in the username and password. So if we now did show databases, we should see that database that we've created. We have. Okay, so I guess what we can do is run this, right? So I guess we could run it one by one, or we could use off the command line. Let's do it one by one. So let's do a copy and a paste of all of these. Do it line by line. We could just copy the whole thing in, but I don't know if this is going to work. So yeah, database has changed. That's good. Now we're going to drop the table if it exists. It doesn't exist, so this should just run, because if it exists, it'll be dropped. If it doesn't exist, then nothing will happen. That's good. And then what do we want to do? We want to create the table user passing it. So this is the thing that might fail. Now that actually does look okay. Yes, good. Cool. And then we're going to insert this record into here. Yes, that looks good. Okay, whilst we're in the command line, let's do show tables, and then do select all from user. There we go. Now, obviously, I don't have the password in here, so that's going to have to be some form of alteration at some point. Okay, cool. But at the minute, like I said, I'm just setting all this up. Let's have a look and see now. If I was to refresh the home page or the index page, am I going to get a different error? Because we know that exists. Let's refresh. Yay, we actually get the actual thing. So let's just tidy that up. Let's go over to, where am I? Index.php. Instead of doing a var dump, let's do a print pre. and then a print R of the user. So we can see, yeah, and then I'll do a var dump underneath. That's fine. So boom. Okay, so this is the nicer formatted one. So we have its app model user, as we can see here, and we have the ID, the first name, the last name, and the email address. That's all good. The one at the bottom is the var dump, where we actually have the data types. So we've got an integer, string, and that's unserialized, uninitialized, obviously. Cool. So that did work. That's good. So moving on. If we go back to the go here, then we can see. So the happy path is to step 1, log in, check the credentials, save login to session, render profile page, query the DB to get the user from the session. And that's essentially what we kind of did, in the sense that we have the ID. So this will be some identifier, I guess. And then we pass that identifier in. We've chosen ID just because it's easy. Well, not easy, but just because it's like the quickest way to get some feedback. And then we've got populate the form with first name and last name, submit the form, input cleaning, data validation, query the DB to get user from the session, blah, 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 all good things. Step 4, save the data, update the user record from the supplied data. So this is this is where we need to sanitize the data, right? Data validation. Yeah, okay. Update the user. So we're calling user manager update, passing in the raw values. And then step 5 is to render the profile page. Right, so we haven't created any of these pages yet. I guess we could do that, but I mean, that's a bit boring. So well, it's not boring, but it's right. So what else could I do just to play? So we have the user. We're going to need to do, so that's the select. We're going to need to do an insert. So we could try an insert. If we go back to the user manager, what needs to be set? The update, find email by hash, save. Okay, so we had this save method that I created. Yeah. So this explains the ID thing. So if the ID is null, which it is by well, that's not a new thing. So if it is null, then we insert the record, and if it's not null, then we update the record. So if we've got an ID, we update, and if we don't have the ID, we insert. That's our save routine. So when we call update, we pass in the user model, and that user model can either have or have not got the ID, and this decides whether we update or insert the record. Okay, so I suppose we could play around with this a little bit, because this is just ad hoc stuff. I haven't really done any work around this. I suppose we could do this and then sanitize the data later. So, all right, so we got the update user passing in at user. So let's do, yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. So we'll do a print. So selecting known record. So all I'm doing right now is I'm just slowly putting in the jigsaw puzzle pieces, and then it's like working around the outer edge of the jigsaw first, getting a feel for where all the main pieces go, and then I'll, fill in all the gaps. So, okay, so find by ID, that's all good. So what we want to do now, I'm going to forget all the comments. Don't worry about that. Let's do, in fact, what we could do, right? Let's create a new file called temp, right? Just for temp play around. Yeah, temp. That way I know that I'm not gonna. not going to mess up the flow. So let's just copy that. That wasn't a copy. That wasn't a Control Z either. Let's copy that. Paste that into here. We obviously need to have all the things. Right. So this is find user by ID. And then finding user by ID. Okay. Then under this, we need to do another one, which is insert new record. Then under this, we need to do update existing record. And I think that's pretty much covers the database calls for this course, right? Because when you select the user, that's you logging in. So logging in. No, actually, that's wrong. When you're on the profile page and you're rendering the profile page, you need to render the details and populate the details on the profile page based on what is in the session. And we could put the user ID in, for instance. So there's that. Then there is the inserting a new record. That'll be called when we log in. When we register. So that's registering a new user. And then updating an existing record will be done after we render the profile page. So you've rendered the profile page with a known user, and now we're going to update that record. So let's work on the insert first. So ideally what I want to do is have user equals can I do a port scanning tutorial on Node.js? Wow. Thanks, Martin. That's an interesting question. Can I do a port scanning? I wouldn't even know where to start, to be honest. Port scanning. I probably wouldn't use Node.js for that. There's all sorts of command line tools that you could use for sniffing ports. I'm sure. So we're going to do a new user, if I can spell it right. There we go. I've just put that back up there. So we're instantiating a new user, and we're going to do user. Get the arrows right. Set email by. Let's just do test 1.testing at howtocodewell.net. That needs to be a dot. Then does this return this? Yeah, it does. Set first name tester1. Set last name is to test the last name. Wow. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about the password yet. We need to hash all that and do other crazy things. So let's just work on that as for a minute. So we got the first name, last name, and email address. We don't have the ID. Okay, so we need to do user manager, and we want to call insert record, right? Why did I choose insert record? That just seems a little bit verbose. Why don't I just do create? Create sounds better, doesn't it? Then insert record. That seems a bit. We got update record. Do we have select record? No. Okay, let's do create. And then let's do. Can we do update? Why didn't I choose to do that? We're not extending anything. It's not like we're. So we could just do insert. So that seems better. Actually, no, I am going to do create. Okay, right, back to here. So we want to do create. So we want to pass in the user. So we want to do the user that we've got. So there needs to be something in between. Let's just, just because I want to just sort my variables out. New user. There needs to be something that obviously sanitizes and validates the input of all of this stuff, but we'll just assume for now that it's fine. Right, so then we've got, let's do new user is equal to that, because that's going to repopulate this, and then we can print that to the screen. So inserted new user. Now we should, if this works, we should have a user with an ID. So let's just copy this, go there. Let's just get over to here. Let's change that before I forget to temp.php. All right, so declaration of user update must be compatible with abstract manager update. Oh, good. That might be the reason why. So user manager. Oh, right. Okay. No, fine. Fine. I think I know why I chose to do that, because I've got different. Let's just comment this out for a minute. There we go. Comment that out for a second. So we've got create here. Oh, I think I understand. We need to do. I was trying to abstract it. That's why. Let's not abstract it unless we need to. Yeah. Yep. So in that case, we need to have another public function. Create. I think when I was doing this, my head was in other places, and I was like, it needs to be abstracted because all of this other things that I was dealing with at the time with work and stuff. But this is just a very small app, to be fair. Right, so we're going to pass in the user. So that's the model that we want. And then we need to do something with this, this user to actually insert the record in. So it's going to be similar to this query by. We could do something like, let's just refresh this page, just see where we are. Okay, so that's selecting the known record. All right, so we know that that works. And then in here, right, void cannot, okay, course, yes, that is the, right, cool. So let's just do return 1 for a second and refresh. Why is that not returning anything? What's going on? That should be saying inserted new user. I think. Let's just get rid of that for a second. And that. What's going on? What's going on? Let's close the prints. Why am I on temp/PHP? Should be dot. There we go. I was on the wrong file. Finding user by ID is working fine, and then we have this inserted a new user. So, right. So I guess if we can get something back with the increment of 2, which reminds me I need to update the primary key on that and also tell it that it is an auto increment. I don't think I've done that. That might fail. Cool. Right, let's pass that back in. pass this back in. I just want to see what one. Okay, cool. So that is being set, and that's being sent to here, and then in here we can then do something with it. So okay, so the SQL will be something like insert. No, it won't. Do we just call save? I guess we do, right? This save, and then there's a question as to what is the point in the create method. maybe instead of that we just do save. I mean, that makes sense, right? Yeah, let's just do save. All right. So we're saving this. Cool. So you would think that there is a sort of a validation. So we would have to do validation here, right, in between the two, in between the creating of the object and then sending it down to the database or up to the database. Okay, so hit save. That passes in the user. We should get an error around the insert record, I think. User ID must not be accessed before initialization. Is that because on the user model? Yes, I need to set that to be null. There we go. Call to yes, insert record. I thought that was what the problem was. So we get to the insert record thing here. Hey, Anvar, thank you for joining today. I hope you're doing well. Thank you. I'm just playing at the moment. I'm building a course for PHP registration using MySQL, however you call it. And what I'm doing is, yeah, just playing with the code at the minute. I'm not going in depth with the documentation yet. That's later on. So there's a while before we get to that point. Okay, so call to undefined method. Okay, that's fine. That's what I expected. So it's in this one. Now this insert record. Do we have the DB? We do. This query, we've got the abstract manager, which has the DB in. So we could do public function insert record. Now the problem with this is that we are supplying the model, right? So down in here, we need to somehow supply that to this. And I want to build this in a way that we can just call like in the future, I wouldn't mind having another manager, right? But, and therefore we can't do this. This is what I'm saying. We can't do this because we've then coupled the abstract manager to the user, which isn't good. So what I could do is I could pass in the SQL once it's been inserted. So before it gets inserted, and then do the magic of the actual database stuff in here. So we could do a string and then SQL, and then do stuff in there. So what we do is we set the user up. We set the SQL up. So SQL SQL, and then we would do the same for the update. I guess we could do that. So again, I'm just playing. I'm just playing. So here we would have SQL. We would have something like insert into the table name, which is dot user table name, and then we would have like values, and then So this would be, again, I'm just throwing things on page. So, you know, so we don't have the ID. We do have the first name. Is it spelt like that? I can't remember. No, we've got underscores. First name. What else was there? There was last name. I believe there was an email address as well. Email. And we'll certainly worry about the password. In its entirety later on. So they're the values. Insert into blah blah blah. Passing in. And then we need to have the actual thing. So I know this doesn't look right. Okay, I know that this will fail, but I'm just trying to get this out of my head. So this would be right. So yeah, this would be that. Then first name, and then that would be last name, and then that would be email. Is it email address? So it's email there, but is it email address in the actual database? Email. Yes. Okay. Fine. Okay. So that's the SQL. We pass that in. We also need to pass in the data. So at this point, we would do that, and then we would have we would essentially give these, right? So we'd have first name. I know this isn't great. I'm just making this up as I go. So then this would be user get first name. Then last name is user get last name, and then this would be email. User get email. So we've now converted this into an array. So when we get to insert record, we could pass in so these would be params, which would be an array of values, right? So when we get to so if I'm looking at this, we've already got the SQL. We can then prepare. So we got statement is equal to excuse me, this DB, because we've injected that. So we now can do prepare, passing in the SQL. Can on prepare, I don't know, can you do both the options? You can. I might be able to get away with doing that. This holds one more key value pairs to be set. Oh no. I think they're different. Okay, yeah, no, don't worry about that. Let's just sort of replicate what was above. So statement, whoops, execute, and then you pass in the parameters or the values that were supplied, and then we return statement. No, it's not a fetch, obviously. Would execute do it? I think it might. Does that? Returns true on success or B on failure. So, I mean, obviously we need to have a try catch up on this one. So that's already ran the execution. So we've got did run, has ran, or success. So let's do a to-do handle errors, and I'll do the same. That needs to be an @to-do, I think. That needs to be there as well. Ugh. Ah. Sorry. Different keyboard from what I was using just like an hour ago. There we go. All I want to do is copy that out. It'd probably be easier if I just wrote that out myself. Hello, where's PHP unit? Well, it's in here, but I'm just creating a proof of concept in a minute. I'm not worrying about testing the code. I'm just playing with it at the minute. Once I've got it into a decent sort of half decent state, then what I intend on doing is tearing everything down and then doing and rebuilding it, but from like a sort of a test driven sort of perspective. So because there will be tests in this, so you can see that there is there should be a test folder. There's these scripts that I can run. I don't know why the test folder's gone. Maybe we didn't add it. Anyway, this is only the third stream in, so I'm not overly worried. Yes, and a lot of this is up for change, so I'm not fully committed to any of this. All right, so okay, so we've got the statement which is on success, and then we need to get, how do we then I can't remember what there is is it straight to DB? I want to get the last inserted ID. There we go. Yes, so here we go. Scroll. Returns the ID of the last inserted row or sequence in the thing. Name of the sequence object, yada yada yada. If the sequence was not specified, okay, then that should be fine. We don't need to put that in. Yeah, no, we don't need to worry about that. So again, just a total proof of concept here. So that's going to be the ID, right? That gets returned when we insert the record. So we return that on success. So handle the errors, and then in here we can then do user set ID, passing in the ID. Now I know that we haven't auto-incremented the primary key yet. We haven't even created the primary key, so I know that this will fail, but let's just have a little play. Give me a second whilst I just double check something. Oops. Right. Yes, I did think I got those around the wrong way. So this needs to be insert. That needs to be over there, because we declare the fields that we want to insert, and then the values that we want to insert into. And then what we could do is we could have a comma and then brackets for multiple ones. So I am going to just do a little bit of tidy up work here. Let's just okay, right, I just want to put in some backticks instead. In fact, what I could do, yeah, just want to put some backticks around this lot. Okay, that's looking better. So insert into user table, insert into users. They're the values that we want to insert, or they're the fields. that we want to insert into, and then this is the values. Okay, so let's and then that does the insert, that does the setting of the ID, that then returns the user. Let's not worry about the SQL here, and then the user here, not there, sorry, the temp. Right, so then we save that. That should then return the user that we've created, and then we print that out, and eventually, obviously isn't going to work at the minute, probably will fail miserably with all this. I haven't, but eventually we want to get to the point where we have the ID. So let's just refresh and see what errors. Okay, uncaught PDO exception, invalid parameter number of bound variables does not match the number of tokens. Okay, interesting. So that could mean that these are wrong. 1, 2, 3. Passing in 1, 2, 3. Email address. You see, I've got email, and that's email address. That's not good. Let me just double check again. Is it email? I don't think it is. I don't think it. So it's email on the model, but is it an email in the code? No. So so that needs to be removed, and let's just remove that as well, and let's keep that. Okay, let's try that. Nope, same problem. Invalid parameter number of bound variables does not match the number of tokens. So okay, so it could be something then. Email, last name, first name. Could be something to do with the insert record method. So statement prepare SQL, passing in the values that we want to do. Let me just have a little look. I've probably done all of this wrong. So insert into blah blah blah, prepare, execute, passing in that with named placeholders. So this does look good. I mean, what I'm doing is I'm just looking at this. So we've got insert into users, name, surname, sex, values, name, surname, and sex. So we put in the statement, which is the prepare. That's what I'm doing, right? Yes. So we're preparing that out. And then we are executing that, passing in the data that they've set there. So that's very strange. Or you can chain the execute to prepare. Oh, I didn't know you could do that. Okay, not that I'm going to, but fair enough. This DB prepare SQL. Okay, so the error is that we are supplying invalid parameter number. Number of bound variables does not match the number of tokens. Insert into use array. So I suppose what I could do is just dump out the array and everything and just see what's going on. I guess that would make sense. So we'll do it. No, that is correct. Oh, hang on a minute. Wait. Oh, look. See, this is what happens when you work on a completely different site and for the past 8 hours, and you come to this and you're like, this is missing. This needs to be here, right? I'm sure this is it. This has to be it. No, it's not. Great. Ah, dear. No, it's not. No, because that's the placeholder. Sorry, silly me. Of course it's not. Stupid me. Right, first name, last name, email. They're all spelt like this. And we are... They all are on a single string. Yes. Right. So that. Yes, that should do it, he says. Yay! Look at that! Woo! So we've inserted a new record, but the ID is 0. And if we were to go over to, apologies about that, that was just me having a brain fart. Let's so we can see that we've got the ID of null here, which defaults to 0 because I'm returning an integer, and then we have tester1 and all of this jazz. So what we could do, right, if I was to refresh this page and then go back into here and run the query again, it's going to insert another row, which isn't great. Which isn't great. So what we could do is just delete these. So delete from user where ID is null. I like doing that in uppercase. So there we go. So if we select that now, okay. So let's tidy up the old database, shall we? Because this is not good. It's not. It doesn't fulfill our needs. If we go over to our SQL on install, we might as well do it here, as an installation process. Let's just move that over there for a minute. So what we need is like a primary key, and we need to set some options to allow it to be auto incremented and to prevent it from being null. So right. Well, I've kind of done it slightly like that. So what I've got is, I'll show you. I don't think you've seen it. So we've got the DB class here, which does the connection, right? And then we have managers we've got an abstract manager that we pass in the DB. Let's get rid of that for a minute. And then here we can we run the queries on them. And then we have the manager, which is specific to the user. So we could have, like, I don't know, if we had any other tables, we would have, I don't know, if we had like an order table, like an order summary table, or like, I don't know, order items table, for instance, we would have an order summary, or an order manager, sorry, which would deal with a shopping cart. That's what I'm trying to say. And then they would call the parent stuff. So up here we are calling calling query by ID. We have hydrate on the abstract manager. I believe that is an abstract function. So all managers need to have the hydrate call to hydrate the record back into the database. Record from the database back into the object. So yeah, we're kind of playing around a little bit with the architecture like that, I suppose. It's certainly not, not properly nailed down right now, as you can probably tell. And this course is specifically for MySQL. So I'm not teaching anything else, just MySQL. So yeah. ID, insert record, first name, last name. What was I doing? Yes, I was dealing with the primary keys. Yes, so Right, so here what we're going to do is run this again, and it will drop the table because it exists, and then it will recreate the table and then insert the known record. So this is the ID. This is the culprit that we want to deal with. We want to say that it's an int, but we also want to say that it can't be null, not null, which is a little confusing because it's going to be null when we first create the object in PHP land, and then because we don't have the ID yet, and then when we insert the record, because we're inserting the record, it's going to create the ID from the auto increment option, and then it's going to during the insert routine, it's going to add that ID back to the hydrated record. I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so the ID is the primary key. It's in int, it's not null, and it is auto increment, and we need to specify that the primary key key is the ID. There we go. All right. So if we weren't going to include that, that would fail. Well, no, it won't fail because it auto increments. So it will automatically be applied. I'm a bit concerned as to why that isn't highlighted. Maybe that's just a PHP Storm thing. I don't know. Anyway, let's run all of this. So I'm just going to grab all of this. Don't need to use the table because we're already using it, or the database because we're already using it. Let's just smash that in. Bang, like so. So now if we did a come out of you, come on, just totally messed that up. Come on, Pete, get rid of it. Get rid of it. What's the command? Let's press enter. There we go. If we did show create table user, you can see that we have created the user table with an auto increment, not null, and well, essentially this is the thing that we used. This was the call. It's also added this all in as well, so it knows what the next ID is. So the next ID will be 2. It's using InnoDB and the UTF char set and stuff that we've specified. So yes, that should be good. So now if we were to do a select all from user again, right, and then go back into here and then refresh our pages, we can see that we've created a user now with the ID of 2. So if we were to run that again, we should now see that we have the ID of 2. If I was to refresh this, that should jump to 3. And if we were to do this, we should see what we got 3. And if we were to do show create table user, we can see that the next auto increment ID is 4, which it is. So yeah, there we go. That's cool. I like that. So the user manager here, what we're doing is we're inserting the record, and we're passing in the stuff, the parameters. I might change that to just be called insert rather than insert record. I think. And also it needs to return, is that going to return a string? Seriously. Isn't that not? Well, I suppose it is, isn't it? Yeah, no, it is. It is. Because like it doesn't know that it's going to be an integer or whatnot, so it would be a string. Yeah, okay. All right. So PHP Stan won't be happy with that at all. But, we haven't got that yet. So it's going to return a string, which is the last ID. And then from here, it's going to set the ID. Now that is an integer. So we need to change that to an int. Right, I think. Yes, let's try it again. Just to be 100% sure. Whoops. Let's refresh the page. No, call to undefined method. Oh, rats. I've gone and changed that to be insert rather than insert record, right? There we go. Right, let's do that. There we go. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and so on. Okay, cool. Right. That's good. That's good. Okay, so that's if we go back to temp. So we obviously need to do the validation, fine. And then here we've got the updating the existing record. I guess we could do that. What's the time? 19:06. Yeah, we got about 20 minutes, I think. So settings, auto, yeah, okay, fine. So yeah, let's try and hammer through this. So what I need to do then is get the user ID from either the new user or the existing user that we are aware of, and then update it. So we could do, let's do new user, and we're going to change the first name. What was this? Tester, I can't remember. Was it tester 1? Tester 1. Let's change that to be tester 2. All right, so it's just tester 2. And then let's so we've made that change. And then essentially we want to do new user, no, we don't. We want to do, yes, no, we do. We want to do new user is equal to user manager, save. And we want to pass in the new user. And then we can put in some documentation, well, some debug here, I guess, which says updated user's first name. Right. So the new user is a bit confusing. I guess what I could do is clone it, but let's not worry about that. Again, we need to have some validation. So this will be handled by the middleware at some point. And then we're going to print that out, and that should be tester 2. And because we're supplying the new user that we've created here and it has the ID, it should be updating it, which means that when we go and rebuild our database and run all this again, we should only see 2 records. Should only ever see, well, no, because we're inserting it, so we won't, yeah. Okay, so no, we will be seeing lots of users. But the last one would be updated. So even though we're setting tester 1, it should always be tester 2. Okay, right. Okay, so let's work through this. So we've got the save routine here. That passes in now our user. We shouldn't be hitting this routine anymore because we have the ID. So therefore we should be in here. So let's go through the update routine. And if I was to just save this, go into temp and then just refresh the page, we should get the error and define update. That's right, because we've got the ID, which means that we're not in here. Yes. All right, so when we do save, we go to update. Update doesn't exist. That's insert, that's update, that's fine. Let's go over to the abstract manager here. Let's create another one. And we have update. Now, I guess what we could do is just return the success. So that would be a Boolean, I guess. Which means that we could just do that. They're getting very close to each other, aren't they? Anyway, so that will not be that. That should be a Boolean. Yep. We can refactor all of this at some point. No problem. Okay, so we hit the save. We've got the ID. We then hit update. So again, with the update, we kind of want the SQL. So we want the SQL and we want the values that we're passing in. So let's just do that again. Now we're only changing the name. So, and I'm not going to create this to be overly clever to work out what has changed and what hasn't changed, because that's just a headache. But what we could do is update user table. Let's just assume that the first name has changed. Okay, so update user table set, and then we want to set, if I can find the damn thing. Yep, first name is equal to first name, like we did before, where, and then this would be where ID is equal to ID or something. So we need to pass in the first name, which would be in user get first name, and then we would pass in the ID, which is user get ID, because we have the ID now. All right, so that's the SQL. That's the let's close that off. So that's the SQL. So update the table name, set first name to first name, where ID is equal to ID. Okay. All right. So then if we go back to temp, I just want to double check we're doing all the things. Yep. Let's have a little play. Let's refresh the page. There we go, and we've set that to tester 2. So before it was tester 1, and now it's set to tester 2. Let's go and double check the database. So there we go, we got the new one, tester 2, which is ID 11. So the IDs should be the same. Yes, they are. So what I'm going to do is just clear it down. So let's just do let's just run that SQL statement again. So let's just run all of that just to clear it down a wee bit. There we go. Duplicate entry for 1. What? Oh. I didn't include this. There we go. Right, so we should only have let me just type it out. Select all from user. We should only have 1 record. Yes. Now when we refresh this page, we're going to get 2 records, and we first set it to tester 1, but it's then reset to tester 2. So if we ran this again, we should get 2 records. The first one is the same, second one will have tester 2 as the first name. Yes. Boom. Cool. Right. So I think I'm going to leave it there, because that's quite a chunk of work that we've done. We need to, obviously there's a lot of holes that we need to plug. So for example, validation. There's a lot of things that we can do to refactor this. As we can see, there's a lot of duplication, like this and this and this, right? So there's a lot of things that we could do to tidy those things up. I haven't decided yet whether we're going to have a delete mechanism. It would be nice to have that, just from the sense of the SQL. You've got the insert, the update, and then what's missing is the select, and then what's missing is the delete. So it would be nice to have the delete mechanism in. Although I don't know how we're going to do that with the with the application. I'm not too sure yet, because obviously I need to build the application. So you'd have the forms. So you would have the login form, the register form, and the profile form. There isn't really anything to delete. I mean, you could delete your own record, I guess. I mean, maybe that's what we do. So you log in, and then there's a button that says delete, and maybe we have a bit of JavaScript on there that says confirm that you wish to delete this your account. You hit delete, your session's removed. Yeah, maybe we'd do that. Maybe. Yeah. Again, see, I'm just throwing things around. Let's do the index. So project setup, creating the register form, creating the login form, creating the profile form, connecting to the database, creating the users table, inserting a user record, validating user input, register a new user, select a user record, log in a user, update a user record, updating a user profile. So that will be like updating the first name. And then, yeah, solid. Let's just create a new lesson. I mean, we can, because, you know. And so the lesson will be deleting a user, and that will be lesson 14. Cool. Let's put that in. Lesson number 14. Lesson number 14 will be deleting a user. So yes, I mean, we might have to split this out a little bit more to say, you know, because of the JavaScript thing. So creating like a JavaScript on-click event on the button to confirm that you wish to delete your user. It depends. It really depends on how long that will take from a video point of view, at least. But I can see this moving into 15, 16, 17 lessons, you know. I can see this being a relatively largest course. And I can see me using this as a kind of a foundation for other things. Again, I would love to get this all refactored and tidied up, but I think next week, let's work on the delete routine. And then I guess once we have all of the records, once we've got all the insert stuffs, once we've got all the SQL queries done, we can look at refactoring that. So next week, let's do the delete query, and then let's look at refactoring, and then we should be in a decent place to look at building the controllers on top of this. So actually putting in like business logic around all of this, which may include where we do the validation. Because what I'm thinking is that we would have like a validation file, a folder, and we would have like user. So you would have like validation as the folder, and then user validation. That would be and we would pass in the raw input, and it would validate that before it gets to this anywhere near the saving routines. Yes. Okay, so that's a plan for next week. Cool. All right. Have a good evening, everyone. Happy coding. See you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.